Who else is on this, Andrew?
Nancy's supposed to be here, and Wyvil. I don't know if he's coming though.
Okay.
Just after seeing how complicated this was, it seemed like it was better to kick it back into committee because I know that's going to get several questions out of the way.
Is Mr. Markowitz coming to this? Do you know?
I don't know. That would
Probably
have been probably not. I figure you can answer most of our questions though, because you've been intensely involved.
Yes, more than I ever wanted to know about dogs.
Yeah. Here's Nancy.
Hi, everybody.
How are you?
Hello.
Hi, Nancy. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Christy. Hi, Joan. Joan, is that Joan?
Yes, it is, Joan. You
my
get a keeper today.
Nancy, did you get the new copy of the contract? Have you gotten it yet?
I see the email, but I don't see a different attachment to it. You're talking about the road contract?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly threaded.
Let's go back.
Yeah, I mean, I see the separate email. Oh no, that's the safety. But I don't see any different attachments than what I had before.
Here I'll just email you it if you would like. It's the same ordinance number,
Yeah.
which is why it's maybe a little confusing. Here.
What's different about it?
Switching companies.
Ah,
And the dollar amount.
The dollar amount.
Andrew, it is 6:15. Would you like to start the meeting or wait a few more minutes for Darren?
Let's go ahead and get started. If he jumps in, we'll catch him up to speed. So this is
oh, I see it. Okay.
It's August 10th, 2020. This is the meeting of the Safety Committee to discuss the vicious dog ordinance. We have Councilman Rocky and Councilwoman Nancy Rogoff and the Chief of Police with us or in attendance. So I know Nancy, you want to go ahead and start with your comments on it real quick.
Yeah. So I guess this seems to track pretty much that Cleveland Heights ordinance, and maybe it has to be this complicated, but I think it's awfully long and dense and complicated. But that said, there's a couple specific things in it. let's see. So section 2, the end of section 2, letter K, small k in parentheses. My pages aren't numbered, so that's the best I can do. But it refers to a companion animal. And we don't define companion animals separately. But some people think that it's, a special kind of thing. And to me, this should be applying to all animals, pets, just a regular pet, not necessarily a special pet that's a comfort animal or whatever label you wanted to put on it.
Yeah,
So
I mean, there's a
I'm concerned that
distinction.
makes it confusing, because I think this should just apply to any pet.
Yeah, a better word might be domestic animal.
Yeah,
I mean, I think whatever we use, maybe we should define that term, because at least I didn't see it in the definitions.
No, I think
You know.
you're right. I don't think that's in the definitions.
So it just, I mean, we're not going to fix it this minute, but it just,
Right.
I mean, I think it needs to be clarified. And the other thing,
Go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say in J, we refer to domestic animal. So it might just be, so right above K and J, it
Right.
says,
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. So, yeah, and I meant to point that out too, but I mean, we mean the same thing, right? By those
Yeah.
two.
a
Yeah.
companion animal and a domestic animal are the same. It's a pet, any animal that's
Yeah.
kept as.
So I just think that we ought to, figure out how we want to say it and change that.
Okay.
yeah, so
And
we just make it say domesticated animal. I think that would be, make sure we use that in every case. I think that would be a reasonable, let's just keep the language the same. And then we could even, if we feel needed, we could define domesticated animal.
well, yeah, I mean, that's good. But I do think that we ought to run that past Dale too,
Yeah,
because it's an important thing of, to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. If we're going to try to charge somebody with having an animal that hurts that type of animal. So let's have him look at it too, if that's okay. And then, and that's this, just below that is where it says in the court's judgment.
Mhm.
I would rather it say the judgment of a court of jurisdiction or something like that. I mean, court's judgment, that could be, I mean, somebody could go, not to put too fine a point on it, but they could go to some court in Dayton, for instance, and get a judgment. So I think that needs to be better defined. Bedford Muni Court, or
What section is that in?
it's just above where domestic animal, the line below domestic animal in J.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
hmm
yeah.
So I just think that's too unclear. And then the other thing,
Well,
Going
would
down.
that, so I thought we referred to, I thought it referred in the definitions that
so in a couple, we
something
do,
about the court that holds jurisdiction, but I could be wrong about that. I
Yeah.
might be thinking of
I mean,
yours.
we do say Bedford Court in someplace else in here, Bedford Muni Court or something like that. But I think that I don't have a problem repeating things. I'd rather repeat things than have it be called into question.
Okay.
So, I mean, again, I'm not saying we should solve this tonight necessarily, since it's not on the agenda. So I mean, I can, if you
Well,
wanted, I could type up these things and send them to Dale and see what he thinks about them.
Okay.
These comments. And then the other thing that I was concerned about is, and it's in a couple places, in section 3A and 4A, where it talks about the chief of police may take up and impound, et cetera, an animal.
hmm
So I think it should say that you can do it, the chief of police can do it, but that the chief of police has the authority somehow to assign that to someone else.
It says that in the
The
definitions.
definitions, yeah. It says, the,
No.
his or her, the police chief, the police of, or the chief of police designated in chapter 19 or 129 of the codified ordinances, or his or her designee. So so Amber
Yeah.
can designate somebody. She doesn't have to go do it herself.
Well, so Mr. Markowitz and I talked about that too, because my designee could also be a kennel. If we would call, there was talk at the last meeting about some kennels that offer services to places. So if we had a vicious dog, for example, where we needed, professional help, even just taking it into custody, that would allow me to designate them to do it.
Yeah.
But you think it needs to be specified every,
I don't know. I mean, to me, it concerns me that you have to look back at the definitions for something. That's all. I mean, I just wouldn't want to have a problem over something like that. Those are kind of key things that, somebody said, well, the chief of police didn't do it. She had Sam's kennel do it.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Again, it's a question for Dale. If he thinks this is okay, then that's fine. It's just, when I looked at it, that's so. I mean, because, you know how people are with their dogs. And, I mean, I could see this could be the kind of thing that could, that to me anyway, the ordinance should be really clear and easy to function with. Because, I mean, you're bound to make people mad if you're taking their dog away. No matter how bad we think it is, they think it's a wonderful dog and wouldn't hurt anybody.
right?
You know how that is. And then the other thing in section 9, and this is something that really is kind of funny and goes way back to conversations with Jim Watterson when he was on council. I see that we're suggesting to add a dog and cat, so that's an addition to that section. And I
Yeah,
really,
Has there been a
I mean,
problem with cats running amok?
what that's saying is that you can't have cats running loose in the village. And I'm
correct.
not,
So, I mean, here's the question. Has it
that's
been,
a big major thing to do.
I didn't ask for that, so I think
okay,
that
so there hasn't been a problem with cats running around.
no, it might have been in Cleveland Heights' ordinance, and that's why it's got added here. I'm not sure.
So if we just take cats out, that would be,
No,
would
I
say-
mean, I think, so I guess here's something to consider. All of these, all of the changes to this ordinance into this chapter are intended to give us more options than what we have now, but it's not going to, and Dale was careful to word them. It's not taking away any discretion on the part of the officer. So where people may, become concerned, well, if my cat who lives outside goes in the neighbor's yard, the police are going to come take it, and we don't, unless it becomes a constant problem, I don't see that happening. But if it is a constant problem, this would, and again, I don't care one way or the other about cats. That's not what I'm here for. But it does give us a way to address that should somebody's cat become a problem, I guess.
Well,
And Chief, I do believe that section probably did come from the Cleveland Heights ordinance. I know from my experience when I used to work there, they did have considerable cat issues between neighbors. So I'm sure that was part of that section. And we can definitely take a look at that and whatever you'd like to do with that.
we've never done that in the village, and I know that we've talked about it. I mean, I recall having conversations, particularly with Jim Watterson, about that. And
Mhm.
and that would be really, that would be a big deal to do that in the village right now. A serious major change to what it's been like. I mean, people, it's pretty hard to control a cat. I mean, if you've got even an indoor cat, sometimes, they do what they want to do. And
So-
I don't know, we have vicious, I mean, we have had some vicious cats around, but they're
Well-
wild cats.
hypothetically speaking, and I'm asking, I guess, because we have a other situation going on in the village where it's kind of like, everybody wants the police to deal with the problems until we find out we don't have anything that we can address it with. So I guess hypothetically speaking, if we did develop a cat problem, so let's say we have a neighbor that starts complaining that their neighbor's cat's constantly coming in, using their front yard as a litter box, how would we address that currently?
We wouldn't have a way currently to address it. Correct?
So I guess that's the question is, do we want to have that ability? If not, and again, I don't have a horse in this race as far as cats concerned, because that's not the issue at hand, but it's just something to consider, I guess.
Yeah, I just feel like that would really cause a problem in the village to make a major change like that with just a language change.
I mean, it wouldn't be that difficult to go back in the future and add cats if we start having a problem. So I'm all for leaving it out, because it just seems like we're adding something in that's that could potentially start some arguments about this ordinance if we start including cats. So I'm all for leaving it out for the time being, and if it's a problem, we can go back and address it. Do you have any other concerns, Nancy?
No, I don't think so.
And then mine, my biggest concern with it at the moment is if you go back and we start talking about in section 3, when we start talking about the impoundment, it's this 10-day window. Is that enough time? Is that right? Because it seems like you would have to release the dog after 10 days if
Only if there's no charges pending.
So it doesn't have to be heard by a court or anything. You just have to have charges brought on.
Correct. So,
Okay.
right. So right now, if a dog bites a person, the health department requires a 10-day quarantine. So that's kind of where that 10-day number comes from in terms of, in fact, if you see it in there, legislative bit. So this applies it to human bites and animal bites.
Mm-hmm.
This section 3 basically says that the police department may, and I thought it was important to put that, but is not required to. So this again gives us some of that flexibility to have some discernment in these cases too. But this is something I had talked about with the prosecutor too, where we have, so as it stands right now, if somebody's dog gets loose and attacks their neighbor's dog and causes significant injury, we would send that dog back home with the neighbor, right? And if it bit a person, the health department would say, okay, and we tell them, you have to quarantine the dog for 10 days, which means it can't go out of the house without somebody right there with it the whole time. But what could then happen conceivably is the dog gets loose a second time and goes right back over and attacks another dog, right? So we've talked about, the need to be able in some of these instances, especially when you have a more severe attack, right? So there's a huge difference between a dog, nipping another dog or nipping somebody's ankle and a dog that takes a chunk out of somebody or causes serious harm to another animal, up to and include killing it, right?
Yeah.
So this gives us the option, it gives us two options. Number one, it allows us in those situations that are severe to take custody of the dog until it's gone to court, right? We can do that. It says it'll be released if there's no charges pending. So if we would decide not to file charges, or for some reason we didn't have charges, we would have to let it go. Or if the person did go to court and was acquitted, obviously we would have to let the dog go. And then I asked Mr. Markowitz to put the option in there to allow us to say, okay, to the owner of the dog, you can choose a kennel to quarantine the dog. So if they want to use their own kennel, that's fine, but it's got to go there for 10 days. And,
Okay.
and some of what that does is just, it gives a little distance between the attack. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I just wanted to make sure that you thought 10 days was, I wanted to know how you came up with 10 days, which you answered, and that you thought that was enough time for you guys to do everything that you needed to do if you were going to press charges and stuff, because we don't want you to feel pressured because we've set some, 10-day window. But that sounds like it sounds like it'll be enough time, and it's what the health department recommends. So it's easy to say that's why we picked 10 days.
Yeah, and I would think that we're gonna have a good idea of whether we're charging, before we would even do a quarantine or do an impoundment. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not gonna impound a dog that we don't plan on charging. So, I mean, the ordinances are set up obviously to protect people's rights, but from a practical enforcement standpoint, if I'm not gonna charge the person, why would I take their dog from them? You know what I mean?
Correct.
Unless there was some extenuating circumstance, but
I'm just, in the world we're currently living in, the courts are working a little slower and things are taking a little longer. So just wanted to make
well,
sure.
and there's stuff written in here too, back in that section that we were in before that talks about, you can have an animal attack where there's an extenuating circumstance, such as the dog was provoked or was protecting an owner, where you may still want to impound that dog while you sort things out.
Yeah.
If it kills somebody, but you're trying to decide, I again, let's pray that we never have that problem, but.
Right. Cool.
So I have a question about this quarantine
Okay.
issue. Do you only quarantine a dog if it's bitten somebody? Aside from charging them,
You cut out at the end there.
aside from charging the dog, of having charges. I mean, is a quarantine
The quarantine's mandatory by the health department.
for a dog that's bitten somebody?
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, so if a dog bit somebody on private property where we couldn't necessarily charge for running loose,
Okay.
the dog still has to be quarantined for 10 days.
Okay, okay. So if the dog is quarantined, could a child walk that dog out on the street somewhere?
No,
Or no. So if the dog is quarantined, it has to stay in the house at all times?
the dog can go outside, but it has to be, on a leash or in a pen, or it essentially can't leave its property for 10 days.
So
And
it can't,
be outside unattended.
okay, and it can't go for a walk with anybody then?
No,
You can't walk the dog on a leash down the sidewalk, adult,
Correct.
child, or anybody. It has to
Correct.
stay on the property and in the house, or if it's outside, it has to be on a leash. And
right, has to be.
Cool.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have any other questions. Do you, Nancy?
no, I don't think so.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak? If you would like
If
to use the,
there are any members of the public that would like to speak, please use the raise your hand function in the Zoom platform. No hands today.
so Nancy, if we got Dale to make those changes that we had discussed, would you feel comfortable? I mean, I feel comfortable submitting it to council for review and approval. If you,
You mean to submit it to council tonight?
no, not tonight. After
Oh.
Dale makes the changes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
So yeah,
definitely.
if we have them make those couple of changes, we'll submit it and try to get it passed. Awesome. Cool. Well, then we will, if there's no other comments, we will end this meeting at 6:37.
Wow.
Yeah, that was fast. I was expecting some members of the public to show up. So,
Yeah, I'm surprised.
yeah, I will see you guys at 7.
Sounds good.
See you then.
All right, thank you all.
Bye.
Thanks.